As we ended the last video presentation, we looked at 4 misunderstandings of differentiated instruction as well as the reality. Let's kind of summarize the whole thing now. Differentiation is a teacher's response to learners' needs. What are those needs? Respectful tasks, flexible grouping, continual assessment. When that's done, teachers can differentiate through content, process, and product, according to the student's readiness, interest, learning profile, and of course the environment of the school, through a variety of instructional strategies. The next innovation that we're going to look at here is learning styles. Now, information enters your brain three main ways, your sight, hearing, and touch. Which one you use the most is called your learning style. Now, this characteristic strengths and preferences in the ways that learners take in and process information. Learning styles are an essential pattern of behavior traits that students must possess to be able to work and learn in schools. Now, what are those 3 different sites? We're talking about visual learners, the way they learn by sight. They prefer to see information such as pictures, diagrams, cartoons, demonstrations, and so on here. The picture, words, and concepts they hear as images. They are easily distracted in lecture with no visual aids. They are overwhelmed with intense visual accompanied by lecture. And of course, they benefit from using charts, maps, notes, and flashcards when studying, so that they are visual. They want to see things here. But then there's the auditory learner who learns by hearing. He or she prefers to hear information spoken, can absorb a lecture with little effort, may not need careful notes to learn, often avoid eye contact in order to concentrate, may read aloud to themselves. They like background music when they study. Do you know anyone like that? These are the auditory learners. And then you have the tactile learners, learn by touch. They prefer to be hands-on. Prefer touch as their primary mode of taking in the information. In traditional lecture situations, they should write out important facts. They create study sheets connected to vivid examples. Role-playing can help them learn and remember important ideas. And of course, they may benefit by using manipulatives. It is very clear that as we teach, the most sense organs we have our students utilize in the teaching process, the greater amount of learning will take place. So keep that in mind, so that as we teach, try to utilize, if possible, all the 5 senses of our students. In fact, that's the reason why sometimes the television is considered such a great teacher, because with the television, all 5 senses can be impacted at the same time, maybe in a television program. Now, your intelligence profile created by Howard Gardner. I'm sure we heard about multiple intelligences here. And these are the verbal linguistic skills, logistical mathematical skills, the bodily kinesthetic skills, visual spatial skills, interpersonal abilities, intrapersonal abilities here, musical abilities, and of course the naturalistic abilities. So all the 3 different areas that we talked about, the visual, the auditory, and the tactile, are incorporated here in those multiple intelligences that Gardner propounded here. We next go to problem-based learning. It is a student-centered pedagogy in which students learn about a subject through the experience of solving an open-ended problem found in the material at hand. So in other words, you have your students try to solve problems. An instructional student-centered approach which uses carefully constructed problems as a context for students to define their learning needs, to conduct self-directed inquiry, 3, integrate theory and practice, and of course 4, apply knowledge and skills to develop a solution to a defined problem. That's what problem-based learning. Continuing here. In problem solving, You arrive at a decision based on prior knowledge and reasoning. In problem-based learning, the process of acquiring new knowledge based on recognition of a need to learn. So we see that problem solving and problem-based learning are two separate and individual things. A very important innovation of the 20th and 21st century here is educational technology. Educational technology is facilitating learning and improving performance by creating, using, and managing appropriate technological processes and resources. In education, the combination of a process and product merges instructional procedures with instructional tools. Now, sometimes educational information is sometimes confused with educational technology. Informational technology deals with things that would pass on information, so that yes, they can play a part in education, but they are not the same. So things like your cell phone or things that you use to communicate would come under information technology. Now, why use technology? Very simply, interactivity, content delivery, revision, managing learners and learning resources, collaboration, communication, sense of cohort, variety of teaching and learning preferences, formative and summative assessment. So I'm sure that as we use the technology to continue our class, these are some of the reasons why we use it here. Collaboration, sense of cohort, variety of teaching and learning preferences. But how does technology influence learning? By bringing us excitement curricula based on real-world problems into the classroom. By providing a scaffold and tools to enhance learning. In other words, it embraces and supports learning. Giving students and teachers more opportunities for feedback, reflection, and revision. Of course, building the local and global communities that include teachers, administrators, students, parents, practicing scientists, and other interested people. And of course here, expanding opportunities for teacher learning. In other words, as teachers here, we should endeavor to use the technology to improve ourselves. How is technology to enhance student learning? Through computer-assisted instruction, where digital programs are used to enhance the teaching and learning process. There's multimedia software to teach a variety of learning styles. Video and audio technology, that's what we are using right now, bring materials to life. Distance education, teacher-student live online interaction. Now in distance education here, someone can be teaching in a particular location, and wherever you are in the world, through technology, you can get a live feed, ongoing, live. That's distance education. Now that's different from online teaching that we have here, where no face-to-face contact is made with the teacher or facilitator, but you are working on your own, but the same effects can be achieved. And of course we have the whole idea of blending teaching, where there's a mixture of the online and distance sometimes with the face-to-face. Now it is said that in research that 88% of educators consider technology essential to teaching and learning, and 95% believe that technology improves student learning. Yet, only 32% of educators use technology to instruct students. Now, teachers use computers several times a week for lesson preparation, but only once or twice a year for instruction. I hope this is not the case with you in our group. In summary, technological innovations affect all aspects of our lives, personal and professional. Important point here. The children of today are the leaders of tomorrow. They must be prepared for those roles today by teachers of yesterday. So we who are teachers of yesterday are preparing students for tomorrow. Therefore, we cannot teach them with yesterday's technology. Now, do you think that there will be a time when technology will be replaced by the teacher in the classroom? What do you think? No, I do not think so, but, and here's the but now, teachers who do not enhance themselves with use of technology today will be replaced tomorrow. The final innovation that we're going to look at here is thematic teaching. I'm sure this is not a new thing to all of us here. Thematic teaching is an instructional method of teaching in which emphasis is given to choosing a specific theme for teaching one of many concepts. Thematic teaching takes place when different disciplines are all centered towards one definite concept. So that concept is the theme that we're talking about here. The theme is a topic of interest that provides the core for group activities. It helps learners see meaningful connections across discipline or learning areas, the subject areas that they do. What is the impact of thematic teaching on education? It's easier to cover the curriculum requirements. Today, teachers, one of the problems that they face and that they complain about here is that we don't have enough time. Thematic teaching is one way to help reduce that problem. Teaching was more enjoyable, creative, and purposeful when it's thematic. It's easier to plan, although initially it was more time consuming, so that it takes more time at the initial stage, but at the end it pays off. A variety of learning styles were addressed, so the needs of individual children were being met, and they were able to learn in a way that was most appropriate. So that's some of the impact of teaching here. What's the teacher's role in thematic teaching here? You choose activities to exploit the content. You monitor and support students' learning. You focus on learning episodes or mini lessons to assist students with making connections. You contribute to students' growing awareness and understanding. Help students understand that learning is connected to life. That's very important here. Giving feedback to students on a regular basis here. Finding meaningful or meaning through an educational process. And lastly, making teaching student-centered. So these are some of the roles that you can play in the thematic process of thematic teaching as an innovation here. In summary, we can look at this diagram and this picture here showing that different subject areas are all interrelated here, one with the other, so that all our subject areas are connected with that one theme that we are talking about here. So we have come to the end of the innovations in the curriculum process here. Today we're going to continue now with the pedagogical innovations in teaching and learning. Many innovations in teaching and learning have been propounded over the past 25 years. Robert Manzano and his researchers conducted a meta-analysis, and the results were published in a book called Classroom Instruction That Works. By the way, this book, the whole of this book here, is available to you on this course website here. I'm sure you're able to look at it here. I paid for its production and it's available to you free of cost. Now, what Manzano did is that they looked at over 5,000 different research that were done worldwide and looked at the results and compared the results and saw the commonalities that were there in all the research that were done. That's what we call a meta-analysis. So what we're going to be looking at there would be what they came up with, the 9 innovations in instructional strategies in the teaching and learning process, and the book is called Classroom Instruction That Works. In other words, the research is telling us here that these are the instruction processes that works in the worldwide classroom. We're going to look at the 9 different areas here. We're going to just do a very synopsis of all of those here, since in your notes you have much more details, and of course you can also read up in the book that is available to you, the online book that is available to you. The first one is identifying similarities and differences. That is where we are presenting students with explicit guidance in identifying similarities and differences. Asking students to independently identify similarities and differences. And representing similarities and differences in graphic or symbolic form enhances students' understanding of and ability to use knowledge. So that similarities, how things are similar and how they are different. The next one here is summarizing. The first part of it is summarizing. Students must delete some information, substitute some information, and keep some information here. So all the information that comes to a student here must not be kept because you become overload. To effectively use this, students must analyze the information at a fairly deep level. Then we have note-taking, the second part of that summary and note-taking. Verbatim note-taking is the least effective way to take notes. So therefore, as you listen to a presentation here, do not try to take the notes word for word. Notes should be considered a work in progress. Notes should be used as a study guide for tests. So that's the second one, summary and note-taking. The third one here is reinforcing efforts and providing recognition. Teachers should keep track of efforts and achievement. Whether you have it on a grade book or you have it on a board or whatever it is in your classroom, you should show students how they are improving. Yeah. Provide recognition. Make it personal. Make a recognition specific. Make it immediate or at least prompt. So the third innovation in teaching and learning process here, reinforcing efforts and providing recognition. Then we have homework and practice. As teachers, you must have a clear homework policy. In fact, your school must have that here. Make purpose of homework very clear and provide feedback on whatever homework is given the next day or whenever it is going to be correct. The next innovative trend in teaching and learning here is non-linguistic representation. Things like providing graphic organizers, things that they can see. Using pictures, diagrams to illustrate concepts. Include kinesthetic activities to reinforce learning where they can touch or hold and feel. That's why we need to have sometimes real things in our classroom. Make physical models that they can see and they can touch. Draw pictures. So these are some of the non-linguistic representation that are shown from research that can have great effects, positive effects in your classroom. The sixth one here is cooperative learning. And there were 5 different principles that are to be followed in cooperative learning. Positive interdependence. And when I say positive interdependence here, I'm talking about depending on each other in the group. There's going to be face-to-face interaction, individual responsibility as well as a group responsibility. So you have to be responsible as an individual in a group, but you are responsible as a group together. Interpersonal and small group skills. So within the group, there has to be interpersonal communication and group skills as we go along here. And of course, there must be group processing. In other words, there would be differences within each member of the group, but as a group, they need to come together and process things together to come up with a final conclusion. So that's cooperative learning as a trend in the teaching and learning process. Yeah. The other one here is providing feedback. Very important here. Corrective feedback provide a correct answer, or it's providing a correct answer or an explanation of what is accurate and what is inaccurate. Providing feedback. It must be timely. The feedback should be criterion reference as opposed to a norm reference. So in other words, when you give feedback here, it must be based on the criteria that you are using to assess that individual or student here. Students can provide some of their own feedback too, and that's important here in providing feedback here. Then there is the 8th one here, generating and testing hypotheses. Teachers should ask students to clearly explain their hypothesis and their conclusions. Use a variety of structured tasks to guide students through the generating and testing hypothesis process. Things like problem solving, historical investigation, invention, decision making. So these are some of the processes that can be used in generating or testing hypothesis. In other words, let's try to get from the students what is going in their mind, what is in their thinking. Now we come to the last one here, cues and questions, and what we call advanced organizers here. This should focus on what is important as opposed to what is unusual. High-level questions produce deeper learning than lower-level questions. So when we ask questions, we need to be able to ask questions that would not give us a yes or no answer, but frame your question in such a way that they have to go deeper to give answers to your questions. As you ask questions, there must be a wait time. In fact, one of the things I need to point out here is that as you ask questions, do not call the name of the students before you ask the question. Ask your question and then call the name of the student who you would like to respond with the answer. Use questions before learning experience.